And I'm delighted to introduce our next guest, David Kleiman, who is president of the Kleiman Group, and who specializes in the meetings industry. And he's a prominent speaker at many conferences. And he's had a mishap that has sort of, given him a new sense of what it means to be healthy and injured, temporarily injured. So the title of this is a diary of a temporary gimp. And so that's you, David. So David, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Jake. Great to be here. So I run a communications consulting company that does research and facilitates think tanks, primarily in the meeting and event space. Longtime tourism and meeting industry guy, past international chair of MPI. And I'm here to talk about my temporary mobility disability issue. So back in May of 2021, I'd love to be able to say that I was skydiving and I misjudged the landing zone, but in fact, I tripped and fell in my own backyard and I severely broke my fibula, my ankle, which resulted in a nice 4-hour excursion to the ER and a cast and the inability to put any weight on my foot for about 2.5 months. 5 days after I broke my ankle, I had surgery. I had a boatload of titanium plates, pins, and screws put in my ankle, and there I was.
Okay, so do you have any record of images that you might be able to share with us?
Funny you should say that. I do indeed, because one of the things that back in May and June, when you think about where we were in the pandemic crisis, we were emerging and I had travel on my schedule. I had 3 global conferences that I was traveling to, and my surgeon gave me the okay to jump on Southwest Airlines and go to Vegas 5 weeks after my surgery. But how was I going to do that? Because I was on crutches and couldn't walk around. So to that end, I went online and I found these scooters that you see in Vegas. And let's see, here we go. I rented this scooter and it's a pretty easy thing to do. I was there for 5 days and renting this cost $160. And it changed my life because we all know what the big Vegas hotels are like, and getting around was a challenge, but having this made it truly doable.
Well, I have stayed at the Mandalay Bay, and I recorded the distance from my room to the meeting space that I was in, and it was 3/4 of a mile.
You bet.
And so I can feel for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is me checking in because this is actually how I flew. So I don't normally for a 5-day meeting have a big bag like that, but when I couldn't carry much in my briefcase. So I checked my bag, I had crutches, and I had a rental knee scooter that I had gotten at home that I was using to get around. But because distances in the airports are big, I had a wheelchair request from Southwest Airlines. And I must give kudos to Southwest for managing that process for me and the other mobility disabled people really, really well. But this gives you a sense of what it was like for me just getting around without the motorized scooter.
Okay. So you traveled with 2 different implements.
Well,
right?
Yeah, and then I rented the motorized scooter.
Yeah, and so, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and then here's me getting around. So here's a tip. If you rent one of these motorized scooters and you need crutches to get around as well. I did, for instance, just to move into a chair or to use the restroom facilities. Make sure your scooter rental people put the device on the scooter that will allow you to put your crutches in easily. I had more people in Vegas stop me with scooters saying, "How did you get your crutches in there? I wish I could do that." This really made a difference. And then in this photo and here, you can see the knee boot that I was in. So I was genuinely unable. I could not put an ounce of weight on that boot, needed to have no weight at all.
So any tips for TikTok or Instagram with these photos, and just say when you're injured like this?
Well, I would say document and record, and make sure that when you're traveling, you contact your supplier vendors, the airline, the hotel, transportation companies. Getting cabs that accept these scooters can be done. It was challenging in Vegas, frankly, because of COVID and the limited number of cab drivers, but generally speaking, post-pandemic. Communicate your needs, don't hide them, and use the vendor community to your advantage so you can get around. It can be done.
So what were some of the barriers you faced that, let's just go through the process here at the hotel level?
Yeah, so I requested and received an ADA accessible room, but every hotel is different. And I'll say that the room I had at the Caesars property, the bathroom was great, very open. I could get in and out of the shower, and there was a shelf in the shower customized to sit on, and grab bars everywhere. But the room really was kind of marginal. It had on-off switches for the lights that were in all the wrong places, and very narrow passages to move this large scooter through. So that was a challenge. Navigating to the meeting space. Now, I am a trained navigator. I'm a sailor and a pilot. I have very good situational awareness, but I can tell you it's very easy to get lost when you're transiting around a big hotel. You've got to use service corridors. You've got to use basements. There's stairways that are going to get in the way. Give yourself time and give yourself the ability to understand situationally how you're going to get from A to B. It can be done, but it takes planning. And
not to mention locating elevators where there are stairs, right?
You bet. And I ran into some issues on that. I got to a point where there was only one way for me to move forward on an elevator, and it was locked off because I was there at 7 in the morning and the elevator for some reason was locked until a later time. I lucked out and there was somebody there who could unlock it, but things like that really were frustrating.
So there are people with disabilities who go to meetings face this all the time.
They do, and I empathize with them. It can be done. I will say that register the fact that you are mobility, that you have mobility issues with the meeting organizer. I went to 3 meetings in 3 weeks in Vegas, Phoenix, and Baltimore. And all 3 of those meetings, I checked in beforehand with the meeting organizer, shared my issues, and they were accommodating and empathetic with my needs.
Okay, so we've got 30 seconds. So I wanted to ask you, at the meeting space, in the meetings that you were in, some were in hotels, some were in convention centers, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So what were the primary barriers that you faced, and what could you suggest could be done?
I would say doors, the opening of doors in convention centers and meeting spaces. Many of them are not automated. So it forces you to either get someone to open it, or you have to physically go up and then move back. And that really was a barrier.
And just so that that sort of translates to the number one barrier that people with disabilities who travel basically said was the problem with hotels were heavy doors.
Correct.
And just and so, and that's something that could be easily actually rectified with the turn of a screw and a canister above the door. So,
absolutely correct.
So anyway, David, thank you so much. It was great to have you and to learn so much of what it was like. And I'm sure this gave you some sort of a baseline empathy for what people who are actually disabled in wheelchairs, because what you had, scooter is about the same width as a wheelchair.
Yes.
You see, and so it was probably something that that you gained, you learned a lot from.
I did. It was humbling and informative.
Okay. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Jake. Good talking with you.